Welcome to part 1 of the recap for our On the Sea Dungeons & Dragons campaign. This was a low-level naval campaign chronicling the adventures of the Golden Tusk pirates as they transported the One Army to the Kingdom of Dova for war. Ian played the swashbuckling rogue Prince. Brett played the Hexblade Warlock Roland. And Kevin played the monk Vecni. Before we recap the adventure, let's get into some campaign and character backstory. The format for this is going to be several different timeline entries. Each entry details an event that happened in history that predated the campaign itself. Year 6128. Marjorie Sharpeye, a high elf, was born in Coldbank. She was born to a noble house and was raised as part of the Coldbank High Society. Year 6267. Halorus, a Loxodon living in Shoddy Urchin, decided to abandon his hometown and his people, taking to the seas and becoming a pirate. He made a name for himself quickly and formed a fleet of pirate ships that ravaged the oceans for plunder and glory. Year 6288. Halorus lost one of his tusks during a run-in with drow slaver ships. He had a solid golden tusk forged to replace the ivory one that he lost. Halorus's crew was so impressed with his new look that Teclis, one of his men, and a high elf from Coldbank, gave him an alias that he later adopted as his one true name, Golden Tusk. Henceforth, his crew and their vessels became known as the Golden Tusk Pirate Fleet. Year 6301. Kevlian Greystone was born to Marjorie Sharpeye and Micklean Greystone. He was raised within the Order of the Burning Fist, an order of mercenaries and questing adventurers formed by the Dwarven Royal Morgrim Karum. Marjorie, as a high elf noble from Coldbank, could not stay with the order due to her noble birth, nor could she bring Kevlian with her due to his human blood. She left Kevlian in the care of Micklean and his allies, returning to Coldbank and her life of nobility. Shortly after returning to Coldbank, the other nobles discovered she had a child with a human. Marjorie was banished from Coldbank and exiled from Thaddeus. She took to the sea in disgrace and boarded a merchant ship, the Denabola. Year 6356. Drow from Harganeth happened upon the tavern in the Cutthroat's Docks, where Marjorie Sharpeye had worked for decades. The Drow learned Marjorie was from Coldbank and attempted to apprehend her. The Queen of Harganeth, Marathi, had a high bounty for any High Elven survivors of the Coldbank genocide. Marjorie was saved by Golden Tusk, the captain of Tuskheart, flagship of the Golden Tusk pirate fleet. Captain Golden Tusk offered Marjorie a job on his ship, which she accepted. To hide her identity, Marjorie changed her name to Vecni Avumque, in an attempt to hide her past as a noblewoman from Coldbank. After a short time on Tuskheart's crew, Vecni was promoted to navigator and second mate of the ship. Year 6360. Captain Golden Tusk returned with his fleet to Shoddy Urchin in Divinagon, a small mining town with a port, to visit his daughter Ixis Lalu. Shoddy Urchin was populated with the Loxodon that worked the Divinagon quarries for the clergy and paladins from the holy city of Goldenlight. This town was very dirty and poor. The Grand Cardinal of Goldenlight long promised the Loxodon they would be admitted into the great city as full citizens once their people repaid a debt to the clergy. The debt was supposedly for building Shoddy Urchin for them after a paladin order saved the Loxodon from a genocide in Un over 500 years ago. The Grand Cardinal treated the Loxodons working the quarries like slaves and employed vicious quarry supervisors to oversee their work. Ixis, Golden Tusk's daughter, was idealistic and very bright, sweet and kind, thoughtful and hardworking. Vecni got along with her very well when she visited with Captain Golden Tusk. Vecni heard Ixis had since become leader of the small town. When Vecni had visited, Ixis was excited that the work was almost done and that her people could join the citizens in the beautiful city of Goldenlight. When Captain Golden Tusk left his town and birthplace 100 years ago, He believed the Grand Cardinal was using his people as indentured servants since they came to Divinagon, but he could not convince his daughter Ixis to leave her people behind. While in Shoddy Urchin, Vecni encountered an especially brutal quarry supervisor that the Loxodon referred to as the Blood Red Sadist and Dos the Flayer. This supervisor was the Red Tiefling, Dos Flacos. He was smug and cruel. The Loxodon feared him, and some claimed he would have the less productive workers, as well as the sick and infirm, kidnapped by his men and tortured. Vecni remembered the sick feeling that Dos's arrogant smile gave her after hearing these stories. Year 6368. Piney, son of Captain Mundo, challenged Bjorn Skytaker to single combat and was killed with a single blow. Mundo set out on a quest to find Bjorn and slay him to avenge Piney. Year 6369. King Dokkan Swiftwater and Sir Duncan became aware the Steelgrave pirates were attacking merchant ships and other vessels friendly to Ferelden. Sir Duncan sent word to Captain Mundo that the Steelgrave pirates knew of Bjorn's whereabouts and tricked them into attacking. The Steelgrave pirates were eliminated by the Misfit Bastards, after the Misfit Bastards tricked Captain Steelgrave with a fake surrender that got officers of the Bastard Sire onto the Steelgrave ship. Angry with King Dokkan after discovering he had been tricked, the Misfit Bastards returned to Ferelden to confront King Dokkan. While in the city, Mundo came across a young pickpocket, Chauncey Skytaker. Chauncey reminded Mundo a great deal of his son, and he decided to take Chauncey under his wing, abandoning his quest for revenge. Year 6373. After finishing a mission with other well-known bounty hunters, out of Horscar in Dalkobel, one traveled to Un to make a name for himself, alongside a small group of other mercenaries. He was contracted by Luna, Queen of Un, to help her and King Sig quell an uprising amongst the Un Highlanders, led by Lord Theodric Ostrogoth, the elderly Lord of Frostfire. Once Lord Theodric's uprising was crushed, one's exemplary service was awarded. He was granted land in the Un lowlands. A castle, Nathington, was built for him, and he was given the title of Lord. Year 6374. Lord 1 was celebrated as a hero of the uprising and quickly moved to build relationships with the other nobles of Un. Not only did he befriend the lords of Foxtrail and Tusk Point in the Un lowlands, but he also built relationships with the lords of the Un highlands as well. Duke Tomcat of Battlecal Fort and Lord Theodric Ostrogoth of Frostfire. Year 6376. Draven Hardham's son, Roland Hardham, was sent to serve under the command of Draven's brother, Garen Hardham, during the Second War of A's Wildlands. Garen died during a battle with kobolds. Roland found a mysterious sword while fleeing the creatures and used it to slay the beasts that pursued him. A voice spoke to Roland through the blade and asked him to travel to Dova. Later, Roland's father blamed him for Garen's death, and he was exiled from the Moonronian army. Year 6376. Captain Mundo began to train Chauncey Skytaker in the ways of combat. Full of jealousy, the Minotaur, first mate of the Bastard Sire, Radalak, began to hate and despise the captain and his new trainee. Talos III, 6378. Chauncey Skytaker earned the nickname Prince after making a fool of himself in a tavern with his crewmates, the Misfit Bastards watching on. Chauncey had made a bet with the Red Tiefling chef of the crew, Dos Flacos, that he would not talk to the pretty barmaid there. Chauncey won the bet, but failed to seduce the young woman. Ilmater 18, 6378. Lord 1 fomented dissatisfaction amongst the nobles, turning them against the crown. Before long, civil war broke out again in Un. Only Lord Gopto of Nude's castle stayed loyal to the crown. Lord Gopto and his men fought alongside the royal guard of Soulfall, but were utterly destroyed by the coalition force Lord 1 assembled against them. 1 ascended the throne and was declared King of Un. King Sig and Queen Luna were spared by King 1 and exiled, traveling to Moonronia to seek asylum. Lord Gopto fell in battle during the war. King 1, a appointed one of his confidants and allies from Dova, Winiger, to rule Newt's castle and granted him the title of Lord. Loviatar 23rd, 6378. Not long after one took control of Un, he convened a meeting with the lords of his kingdom. He convinced the other nobles that the fierce men of Un could accomplish more, become greater, and conquer all of Cortania. The lords agreed and plans were set into motion to invade Dova and crown one as king. Year 6379. Chauncey, Prince Skytaker, killed his first man, truly becoming a pirate and full-fledged crewmate of the Misfit Bastards. Year 6379. With the planning complete, one, his lords and their army began ferrying men to Dova, establishing an outpost in the southern region, the Fringe. The northern, Prince's Port, was a much more direct route, but near the capital of Lauriston and heavily defended. One and his council quickly realized their meager navy was not sufficient in transporting the enormous number of men to the battlefront. A contract was agreed upon, and the Golden Tusk pirate fleet was hired to assist Un in the transport operation. Talos 6th, 6380. A mutiny took place aboard the Bastard Sire, as the vessel neared Frostfire in Un. The mutiny was led by First Mate Radalac. Radalac murdered Captain Mundo, after expressing his hatred for Mundo and Chauncey Skytaker. Chauncey jumped overboard to avoid being killed by the pirates' mutiny. Chauncey washed ashore near Frostfire. A siren that preyed upon those that landed on the shores near Frostfire for many years, Telegwyn, failed to lure Chauncey to his death. Chauncey fled to a guard post, where he was captured. Knowing he could not tell the guard he was a pirate, Chauncey declined to answer any of the guard's questions, and was thrown into the Frostfire dungeons. A short time later, the Un army searched for potential recruits in the Frostfire dungeons to join the coming war of Dova. Chauncey, Prince Skytaker, joined the Un army. Days later, he boarded Tuskar, the flagship of the Golden Tusk pirate fleet. The Golden Tusk pirates had been hired by King One to transport some of his soldiers to the battlefront. Aboard Tuskar, Chauncey met the captain, Golden Tusk, the first mate, Teclis, and the second mate navigator, Vecni Avumque.